Is it time for you to refinance your home or buy a new home? Let's talk real estate in 2021.
Welcome to Coffee with the Queens, empowering you to grow and protect your cash credit castle and kingdom. Have you ever heard the phrase, get your ducks in a row, and you feel like you haven't done that? We share learned lessons and practical advice to help guide you to a life of financial freedom. Empowerment is key, so grab your coffee and crown and let's get to it. Take it away, Queen Tammy.
Good morning, Queens. How are we?
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Well, we got our coffee. I have peppermint mocha. What do you have?
Wow. I'm going to live vicariously. It's later for me, y'all, so I moved on to lemon water. It's not quite as tasty as peppermint mocha.
Mine's fresh orange juice, fresh organic orange juice from the farmer's market.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Sorry.
They're in San Francisco. All right. Okay, girls. So today we want to talk. There's been so much buzz about refinancing, what the groups look like, is now the right time. So I thought, we all get our ducks in a row. This is part of our getting ducks in a row around here. So let's talk about this. First of all, before we dive in, if anyone is watching us on whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, please comment, because those who comment get lots of love and prizes from us. So make sure to
share. Share. Invite people to come and join with us as well. Share, like us, do whatever you can, especially to our YouTube channel, because your participation in helping us get seen is going to allow us to bring even more great content to you. So.
And don't forget to wear your tiara, because it makes you feel empowered.
Yes.
True.
That's what we're all about. Yep. So let's get into it, girls. So where are you in the process? Have you thought about refinancing, purchasing? A friend of mine just told me the other day that they wanted to refi, but they were thinking, well, maybe I should just purchase right now. What does this season look like for all of you, where you are?
For me, I'm watching the values climb around us, which I think is due to the fact a bit because of COVID, because people are moving out of the city, wanting more space. And so they're moving out to the more rural areas, which is kind of where I live. And we're still close enough to the city that we're getting a huge flux of people that want to move out here. So our property values are increasing, and I hear people talking that the interest rates are really low. So in some ways it's very good, because our property values are rising for the desirability around us rising. On the other hand, I almost feel like we could be chasing the market. We're looking at a few lots here that we might want to buy in our area, and I feel like we're going to be chasing the market as it's climbing up. And so it is that whole thing, like, are we too late? Are we too early? Timing is so important, and how rushed do we have to feel in order to make this investment? So that's kind of, what we're dealing with.
Interesting.
Well, I'm actually so glad that we refinanced quite a few months ago. And, I'm glad I did, because, you got us a great rate, and I was actually going with someone else, and you said, but wait, let me see what I could do for you. And you actually got us like 0.5 points less, and it was great. So a 3.0 for 30-year fixed. Now I could breathe, and I have less stress, because I was on one of those 7-in-1 arms, or I think it was a 5-in-1 arm, and 5 years was coming up. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? Because it would skyrocket to the prime rate. Now I don't really know what happens in that, but it's not good. Right? Because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, it's the fear of the unknown, right? But I would really like to have, all my ducks in a row and make sure that I'm okay for the next 30 years. And if I pay it off early, I won't be penalized for it. So, it's just less stress. And I know every month what my mortgage payment's going to be, so I could breathe. So I'm glad I did it. I'm so glad. And, it was the procrastination at first. Should I, shouldn't I? And you see the changes fluctuate. So I'm glad I did.
Awesome. That's good.
So when I see And this happened to me when I decided to sell my house and move to a new house. And I see a lot of people in California moving out of California to other places, and they're thinking, wow, this is great. And I would just like to remind us of this little thing called capital gains tax that's due when you sell a house that's worth more than what you paid for it. And think of it as a government fee that you're going to have to pay when you file your tax return. We can talk more about it, but it's there.
I know that surprises some people. Now, Tammy, you are a certified mortgage loan officer.
Right. So a lot of people may know me in the past few years from speaking on Amazon and everything Amazon, teaching Amazon. But I have been in real estate since, before I was in college. So my dad was a big realtor. I grew up around that. So I started as a realtor, but I started to notice that one of the biggest and most sometimes frustrating and misunderstood part about buying a home or home ownership is in financing. So I decided to switch gears and go to the financing end of things back in 2001. So I really have doubled down more recently, even in the past few years, in spreading my wings a little bit as a mortgage loan officer, as my own children, my own millennial children, started getting into the market. And I realized, man, there's kind of a big financial literacy gap here still, which is why we have Digital Duchess and Coffee with the Queens today, too, to really help spread that, knowledge and help people make it a smooth process. And, to answer the question, kind of what you were talking about, Sandra, should I, shouldn't I, are we chasing the market? What is the deal? It really is sort of a personal scenario. So you really do have to look at all the different variables in your life. I would say for millennials, now would be a great time to buy if you're a first-time home buyer, because the rates have never been this low. They're historic lows. Our millennials may be in for a shocker down the road when we actually have something called inflation that cycles. They'll see rates that just will be mind-boggling, rates that we've seen in our lifetime. So it's interesting from that perspective. And let's just say, if you're thinking about buying, selling, versus refining, you really got to look at what you're doing in your life. I mean, are you settled? Is this your home for a while? We have a market right now that there's limited quantities because you said people are moving out of the cities, but even in the cities, everywhere, we're seeing some homes that there's 40 competing offers in a day or two for people. So I just want people to know that if you are going to go into home ownership or try to purchase at this time, the values have gone up quite a bit. I've seen over the last year some that I've just refied, over 30% equity they've gained in the last year because of the increase in housing. So yeah, you may be paying top dollar here, but with the rates this low, you can get more house these days. You can get more for the dollar than you would, if you were to wait. Just be ready and patient that it may take 5, 6, 7 offers before you actually get an accepted one because of this competitive market. That's what I would say.
Wow.
Now, some people have actually been furloughed and receiving unemployment now. And so how does that affect their desirability as far as the lenders are concerned?
Right. And this is a really great question. And it saddens me when I have to tell people. I had a girl yesterday that she was very excited for a couple of reasons. She said, "Oh, I think we're ready. I have my credit where we want it. And but I just started my new business and I've got, my first client, and here's all my W-2s from last year." And the biggest one was the unemployment one, because she had been unemployed, furloughed early in the year with COVID, and then the business closed, and then she's been on unemployment. So, I had to break the news to her. Number one, none of that unemployment income counts. Okay, none of that counts for lending when we figure out your debt ratio. And number two, if you are going to use self-employment income, then we have to take the net income over 2 years. So we have to have a minimum of 2 years of self-employment. So my best advice to people in that scenario are to just go get a W-2 job. Especially when you're just starting a business, I would always, keep sort of a W-2 job going while you're, starting your
While
entrepreneurial
you're building your business.
Absolutely. And then, all we need is a couple of pay stubs or a contract or whatever you have from the employer, and you're ready to go. You're ready to hop into that purchase now.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Now, as we were saying, as you alluded to, the timing, right? With the market, are you chasing the market or not? But there's another aspect of that timing too, when you just mentioned credit. So if somebody says, well, I want to take advantage of these low interest rates, but I feel like I have to wait until my credit gets to a certain point. And then people fear that they're going to miss the low interest rate. So is it a valid fear?
When people ask me this question, there's a couple of things I tell them to do immediately. So, if you haven't checked your credit before you're ready to apply for a loan, you must do this. Once I pull your credit, a mortgage broker pulls your credit, that is the credit we go off of for 90 days. So it behooves you to do everything in your power to make sure that credit looks pretty clean in the way you want it before we do what's called a hard inquiry, okay, which kind of drops your credit a little bit. So if you haven't done that, go to myfico.com or go to annualcreditreport.com. Those are the two places where you're going to get the closest and truest picture, most accurate picture of what our score looks like. We use what's called a FICO score. So if you're getting your credit score from Credit Karma, it may be 40, 50, 60, 70 points off, right?
Usually it looks more favorable. I was reading Credit Karma can look more favorable. So you think that you're set up really well, and then you get this shock that you may not be.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know whether you saw it, but Intuit just bought Credit Karma, and they just had a huge lawsuit filed against them for the fact that Credit Karma scores are not correct. Did you see that in the paper yesterday?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but maybe again, in my case, because we're sort of like this too, we are thinking about buying a new home again. And it was interesting because I did take a look at my credit score. And what I saw, Tammy, was something that was sort of interesting. I saw that I sort of got dinged because I don't have a home loan anymore. I don't have a car loan anymore. So there was something about I could raise my credit score, even though everything in my life is the same as when I owned a home. My credit score is now less than when I owned a home. And maybe you could explain this thing called what they said. I have the wrong kind of credit. I think that's sort of what they said.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I like to tell an example of a friend of mine who was doing great, so great in her career as a realtor that she paid everything off. She bought a bunch of different houses, and she just used one American Express card. So she paid off all of her credit. What does that mean? If you have a few different trade lines. A trade line is an open line of credit. So if you have a credit card, that's something that's an open line of credit that shows up on your credit report, and it shows your payment history, okay? What we care about is the age of that line of credit and your payment history. Hopefully there's no missed payments on there is what we strive toward. That is one trade line, and that's one type of credit. That's unsecured credit. The other thing we look for is maybe an installment loan or installment loan history. That's something like a car payment or a personal loan. The other thing we look at is a mortgage. So if you have no mortgages, no credit cards, except one that you pay off, like how the Amex works every month, and you have no installment loans, no other, then you have what we call a very thin credit file. So you'll see that score come down because we're not showing the great mix of credit that allows lenders to see what kind of payment history you do, how you manage things. The best thing that I can advise people is, instead of ever closing those credit lines, try to keep them open, especially the aged ones. You can put a like a freeze on them, but a big part of our credit score is determined by the balance to limit ratio. So if we have a credit card that had a limit of $10,000 and you never used it, so you said, I'm going to close it, that would really negatively affect our score, because now our limit is much lower. So if we had one other card that we're always using, and we're kind of maxing it out and paying it down, that's a much worse scenario than having several open and keeping that limit or that balance to a 30% limit ratio. So we do have some more. I know this is a lot of information, so we do have some more videos, and I think our Gilman is putting them there in the chat if you want to go deeper with this stuff. But those are really valid points to consider before you apply for a loan. It's going to help you.
I think Margie is putting that up.
Okay.
In the comments. So
now I find it interesting with those credit scores as well. And I remember when we were refinancing with you, my mom's credit score wasn't too good. Mine is in like 700 and 800s, but we couldn't really go off of all mine. We had to go off of hers, and hers was like in the low 600s. But you actually showed us some strategies on how to get our credit scores up. And it took a little bit of while. So I know that we're going to have another show on credit, which is going to be phenomenal. But I can't wait to discuss how we brought her credit score up. It's quite interesting how you did that.
So if you have any kind of, things happen. I mean, you have a surgery, you get sick, you're laid up, and you miss some payments. What do? That's horrible on our credit, because, right, it affects it because we have missed payments. The number one way to make your credit score tank is by missing some payments. So we definitely don't want to do that, but it happens. So there are ways to fix that and turn it around. And we do have, letters that we can use to write some of those creditors to explain things, sort of form letters. And before you hire a Lexington Law and spend lots of money on that, or before you try to do it yourself through the bureaus, I would, join us in the Digital Duchess group or our Ducks in a Row program, because we're going to go through the right way to do it, because it's not electronically. That's the secret. So yes, it takes some time, but there are strategies to bring that score right back up. And we can do that. We also did it with one of your family members, Kathy, too. Over time we had to work through that. So, but it takes a little patience, but it's worth it. Credit score is so important, right?
It sure is. It sure is. Yeah.
So there's something about the process when you start the process of whether it's credit or preparing for a mortgage, that all of a sudden you're on like this list somewhere and you start getting like a bazillion phone calls and solicitations. Is there any way that you can not put your, like, being a lamb at slaughter, where you're just like, come get me? Little help with that?
It's really frustrating. So what happens is you apply at some online, Bankrate's a big one, because people like to go over there and use their calculators, bankrate.com. So once you go into this forum, these leads get shared with tons of different mortgage brokers and lenders out there, and then they'll call you. They'll all call you trying to say, can I help you? So what I would recommend is two things. Number one, at least 5 days before you apply anywhere, go to this site called optoutprescreen.com. This is sort of like the do not call list for our phones, but this is for the internet. Okay, so it actually helps us opt out of all those soft inquiries. So it's saying, hey, website, I don't want my information shared because I'm on this national registry. So do not call me. I'll call you. Thanks. So, and then the next.
Margie's posting a link to that too, to optoutscreen.com. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then we have, I think, yeah, and make sure it's opt-out pre-screen.
Yes, that's what it is. I read it wrong.
Okay, good.
My bad.
Another one. That's not good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm writing that down too.
And then the second thing I would do is, instead of going to just a random site out there to just try to figure out what your rate might be, I would go to what's called findamortgagebroker.com and find a mortgage broker, because I have a whole video on this too. It helps you so much. A mortgage broker is like your personal shopper. Okay, so we have access to hundreds of different lenders, and at the touch of a button we can do all the shopping for you, so you can feel good saying, oh, okay, well, I know that these are the 3 top contenders, this is my best rate, and this is the one I want to go with, and your mortgage broker can help guide you through that, instead of you calling Wells Fargo and then calling Bank of America and then calling the guy down the street, and then it takes all the work out of it for you, and you won't get tons of calls because this one person is able to do all that shopping for you. So that's
also true too, that if you do establish a relationship with a mortgage broker, I know for us, we had some bumps because both my husband and I are self-employed. We were asked to jump through so many hoops when we bought here in Austin. It was insane. And it was not a financial situation so much that it wasn't that we had plenty of money to put down. It was just that they required so much of us. And it was so awesome to have a good relationship with a mortgage broker, because he was able to battle for us when we weren't able to do that, when we had to keep busy running the business that's allowing us to buy the property. Right?
That's a serious
to do that. So it is very valuable.
That's a very serious benefit and a really good point, because we'll take a look at all of the documents, and then a big part of what we do is say, okay, well, that it's going to get denied over there. Okay, this one has looser, and they don't care about this thing that's negative over there. So we sort of fit and mold it to the programs available, so you don't have to go through all those deny, right? And we can just slot it in the one that we know you're going to get approved with, and also sort of guide you with what information we're going to send. So, I had a scenario where a borrower was self-employed, and then I told her to go get a W-2 job, as I do, and at the same time she had just applied with a credit union who immediately denied her, but I knew not to send in those documents until we had the right documents, and then we got her approved. So that's the difference between working with a person who has access to several different lenders and knows what we can help you submit at the right time. That's all important stuff.
And I highly recommend, when you start the process, when Tammy or your mortgage broker asks for something, get it to them right away, because time is not on your side if you don't. It has to be on your side, so you have to help and with that process. And I was right on it. When she needed it, I got it to her immediately. And so that will help too.
As you are with everything, Suhaila, you're Johnny on it.
Sign up for something and you get it 10 minutes ago. It's like, she
So
works
it's like-
time. I don't know how she does that. Like,
So how do you, just out of curiosity, how do you get these credit limits, in my case, these different types of credit types that would help your credit score? How do you do that?
If you don't have a mortgage, your credit score is going to improve with a mortgage once you get a mortgage, right? If you don't have an installment loan currently, I would get a small installment loan. You don't have to. It's just
Do I have to go buy a car? I'm just asking.
Bill, I told you that. He's going to say, what? Just even a small installment loan. I see some people have small installment loans to redo their windows, or to do, those are installment loans. Student loans can be installment loans. So there's a mix. In your case, Kath, I think your credit history is very long and broad. So, and you still have a score. It's just not where it was. So
exactly.
the mortgage, it'll go back up. Credit is, an often question that we get is, why did my credit score go down so much? I don't understand what just happened. I didn't do anything. What happens is we are put in different credit tiers, almost like scorecards. And if we have a 30-day late on one of our credit lines, we're put on that scorecard that says 30-day late people. Okay. And once that falls off, then we're put on a different scorecard. And maybe that scorecard was that we had, a bankruptcy or a foreclosure 7 years ago. And once that falls off, we're put on another card, and maybe our credit line increased. Okay. So now we kind of work our way up to the top of one, and then we fall into the bottom of another. So it's very convoluted and complicated, and probably the reason that people are up in arms about our current
Very confusing
credit scenario.
That reminded me, I wanted to ask, so if somebody were into bankruptcy, so how long do you have to be out of bankruptcy to actually look for, if they wanted to purchase a home? That's
a really good question. So it depends on the program. So conforming loans, which means like the normal 30-year fixed rate loans that you would get maybe at a big bank, they like to see 7 years, sometimes 7 years for foreclosure bankruptcy. Sometimes we can get away with 4 in some programs. There's government programs out there that will allow 2 years out. So we just did a VA loan for a gentleman and his wife who lost his job, out east. They ended up moving to the Midwest, and but the pay also followed. So they had to file BK, and it took a little bit for him to dig out of it. But we got him back where they needed to be within 2 years, and even 100% loan. With a VA purchase with a bankruptcy only 2 years out. So, don't give up hope. I mean, everybody makes mistakes and things happen. But just there are programs out there that,
Well, you mentioned money down too. So how much money, when you're talking like millennials or first-time home buyers, right? It's a huge question that they have. How much money do I have to have in order to purchase something? Is there a rule of thumb there?
Well, there's 3% down programs. There's 1% down, 1.5% down. There's 0% down if you're a VA, a veteran. We can do 0% down. A lot of this is credit score driven, but even some of our government loans now, FHA, VA, from 580 and up, we can get, little money down. If you're down in the low 500s, we can still get things done, but then, they want to see more money down, right? Like more like 10% down. A normal conforming loan, they want 5% down at least, and then you're going to be paying what's called private mortgage insurance until you get down to, more than 20% equity or 80% LTV. You'll be paying a little bit of a mortgage insurance on there until you get about 20% equity.
Wow, had no idea that you could do that. That's pretty cool.
There's, I want to share a story because there's 3 people have been going through such hardship this last year, and 3 recent loans that we did were really creative and really cool. And I just want to let people know that there's hope. If you can have a family member, the one gentleman I was talking about where the BK was 2 years out, he had his uncle bought a home or owned a home and then decided to move to a different state. So the uncle allowed them to rent it. Okay. And this is the home that they ended up purchasing. Well, the appraised value of that home went up over the last couple of years. So the uncle was able to gift them equity. Okay. So no money out of pocket. So they got a gift of equity to the point where, there's no MI involved. And the uncle didn't mind because he was able to get his money out that he had put in. And it really put the borrowers in a great scenario from a loan to value perspective. So there are those things too. Also a mom that was, trying to get her ducks in a row. And she wanted to sell her home to her child. So again, she gifted him equity, and he and his fiance moved in. So there was no money down there, and they had major medical issues, the son. So that was a wonderful, credit issues, right? And that was a wonderful gift. And again, she was able to get what she put out of it and a little more, put into it a little more. And the son was able to go in there with no money down because of that gift of equity. So there's some really great things, creative things that we can do these days. So just don't lose hope. If you've lost a job, if you had to file a BK, we can create a scenario that could be a win. If you don't have money in the bank, there might be ways to get creative.
You can take
So-
advantage of
So
it
Tammy, I
online.
can tell you're a mortgage broker because you throw these acronyms out like we should know them. BK, I assume is bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy.
And MI, I am assuming is mortgage insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you for calling me on that. This is probably one of the most acronym-ridden.
To the military, right?
Yeah.
So when you gift equity, do the people have to refinance to do that?
No, they can sell it, right? So they sell it to their son. She sold it to her son, and she gave a gift of equity. She gave 60 grand in equity, so that counted as his money down.
Yeah.
And so he didn't.
So
really-
our producer, Margie, has put in our personal notes over here, those that are watching. So I had no idea you could gift equity. I'm going to have my husband listen to this. So again, I would encourage, if you're watching and this is like waking something up, you're going, oh, something's possible, share this with your family and your friends, and just share the link to this, share and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, the Digital Duchess channel, so you can get more of this info of getting your ducks in the row. I have one last thing that is on my mind. And every time that you say 30-year fixed, 30 years, there's a piece of me that goes, oh my gosh, I'm so impatient. The idea of waiting 30 years to pay off anything is horrifying to me. I'm like, what's the fastest that you can pay? I mean, aside from possibly winning the lottery and, slapping down a whole bunch of money, is there a way to pay off a mortgage sooner? You get penalized for that? That might be a layperson question, but I'm just going to ask.
I am so happy you brought that up, because one of my missions as a mortgage loan officer is to really educate people about the different programs that we have available to us these days. The US is really behind the curve. Places like Australia and New Zealand have different types of programs out there than a normal 30-year fixed mortgage. So the normal, just so you know, from a historical perspective, the 30-year fixed mortgage came about after the Great Depression back in the 1930s, okay? Because people couldn't afford, before that you had to buy a house outright with cash, okay? There was no financing. And so they came out with these loans to encourage more home ownership, right? The American dream. The problem was that, the bank said, well, I got to make my money, up front. So how we pay a mortgage is we pay all our interest off. You're very interest heavy first for the first 12 years, right? You're not chipping very much away at that principal. And places like New Zealand, Australia, Western Europe, they said, I don't really want to stand for this. I don't like this. I think there's a better way to do this. So they came up with something called the offset mortgage. If you ever had a business account called a sweep account, it works much the same way, wherein they take all their money and put it all in one account. So my mortgage gets paid out of this account, all my money goes into this account, and every time I put money in there, it immediately goes off the principal. So it's just a different mindset. It's a different way of paying things. And I'm probably the only mortgage broker that is proposing that you take a look at this type of mortgage, because it's not a mortgage. It's like putting myself out of business. It's like you'll never need another mortgage again if you do this type of mortgage. It's called an all-in-one loan. So we adopted it here in the US in 2008. And the restrictions are you have to have quite a good credit score, over 700. And so it's a little bit more difficult to get the loan, but wow, is it worth it? So that's what a lot of friends and family and people that I'm close to, I'm encouraging to do, because these types of loans you can pay off in 5 years or less by not putting any more money down than you normally would on your monthly payment. So it's really, really a cool concept. I'm kind of marketing it as, not your mama's mortgage. It's so different. It's like you got to wrap your head around it. But we're very conditioned to this 30-year fix being the only way, but it's not the only way.
Well,
So
now that my mom's credit score is going up and getting close to mine, we got to recheck this out real soon here. But until then, could somebody pay a little bit more during the month for their mortgage payment to bring it down?
Typical way. That's the typical way to do it. If you do have a 30-year fix, 15-year fix, and by the way, these days now you can get a 17-year fixed, a 12-year fixed. You could pick the year, right? So if you're retiring in 12 years, you can get a 12-year to make sure you're paid off by retirement, just as a side note. But what was your question again, Sahila? Sorry.
If they want to bring down the payments, bring down the mortgage, could they add extra money per month? Or even I hear that you could pay one of your mortgage payments like a month in advance or something per year or something that will help.
One extra payment a year help knock off a certain amount of years, or even just paying it in 2 separate installments during the month. That's called biweekly payments. That helps shave off a bit. And also by adding a little bit more. So some people just add $100 to their payment every time. That also helps. But you're still stuck in that principal first loan model. So again, it's not going to be as fast as doing sort of the new model of loan that's, the all-in-one type
progress. It's progress.
Yeah.
So, and progress that we're talking about is exactly like we talked today about, we tapped into credit because it's connected to what our subject here is. And we have so many other things that are all part of what we're doing is in getting our ducks in a row, us meaning the queens here. And so that's why we want to invite you to our journey. So we have our program called Ducks in a Row, and we want to invite you to that. Tammy, can you share a little bit about what that is?
I can. We have a cute little video that is not cooperating with us right now, so we're just going to go with the banner.
But it's such a cute commercial.
It's
such a cute little thing.
It is.
A little video in our comments. It's so cute. It's just not, this platform's not liking us right now.
Oh, okay.
No, but what Ducks in a Row is about is the going through getting all your finances in order. And we decided to do it as a group and invite you along with us because it's never fun. Let's face it, unless you have Sahela pushing you to get things done like she does with us.
I'm the cheerleader.
Yeah, be your cheerleaders. It's hard to continue to say, oh man, I got to get my trust done this year. I got to get my, I got to do this with my credit. I got to check this. I got to check that. But if you have a community helping you along, educating you the right way to do things, and then able to ask questions in real time with us, and we discover and learn together and grow together, that's what we've developed and we're launching for you. So we launched what's called Ducks in a Row. And it is a step-by-step program where we have videos, we have workbooks, and so it starts with a master class, and then you're going to come into our community. You're going to have access to this Facebook group and go through the courses and the action items all together. And if you get stuck, you have us here to get you through it. So we're just launching this, and we're launching it at a steal. Okay, so. Right now, if you text this number, because it's going live right at the end of the month, if you text this number on the screen right now, you can get in and save your spot as a founding member for 27 buckaroos. And after this month, it's going to go up by a couple hundred, okay, because it's a whole core. Like, it's really, people would charge thousands for this, but we want you, our loyal fans and followers, to be get your ducks in a row, just along with us.
And you
Yeah.
can see the value of having somebody to bounce things off of. I mean, just in this conversation today, the questions that are coming up for us, and I think for our audience as well, as we're asking them, it's like, oh, well, what about me? What about this scenario? You know, you may be listening to what Tammy was saying today in regards to mortgage or refinance and go, yeah, but Tammy, you don't understand what I've been through. Tammy, you don't. And this way you actually get an opportunity to work through what you think your situation is, and you can bounce it off of Tammy. Or if it's another subject that has to do with your cash or your kingdom or your castle, that's what we're going to be covering. So, I mean, you have us here at your disposal while you're in the program, and it's definitely something to think about, especially in the beginning for $27 to get started. I mean, that's crazy. So, yeah, you can put your stake in the ground by just texting to 833-998-0553. Text DUCKS, and we'll get you set up and make sure that you're in the program. So, shall we move to our quote, you guys?
Yes, I would like to acknowledge Louise as a great commenter today.
Thank you, Louise.
And let's give Louise her spot in Ducks in a Row.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good freebie.
Yes. Wow.
So if you're watching this after we are live, there's a reason to show up live, because we give stuff. We give free stuff. We're like Oprah. Well, okay, maybe not Oprah. We're not up to giving cars just yet, but we're working our way.
We'll get there.
Keep sharing and liking, and maybe we'll get there one day.
Have to start somewhere.
Exactly. So our quote for today comes from financial guru Dave Ramsey. If you don't know Dave Ramsey, check him out. He's got some really practical, amazing advice, and he has built an incredible empire from a business perspective, helping other people do this, build their own empires and protect what they have. So his quote that we're using today and thinking about is, you must gain control over your money, or the lack of it will forever control you. That's a little bit of a, we tossed around a few different quotes to share with you today. And this one, I have to tell you, kind of was a little, kind of gets you, but it's true. So what we want that to do is not to make you feel bad if it kind of got you to, but to be able to really empower you to realize, you know what, you're not going to be controlled by your lack of money in any capacity. We want you to feel abundant. And so thank Dave Ramsey for that quote. And we want to thank you for being here with us. Next week, we have a good show next week, because social media, as we all know, so many things are changing in our social environment. Social media is absolutely no exception. It is so tumultuous out there right now. So we're going to find out, we're going to discuss what it takes to launch a new social media platform. And we're going to talk about why in the world we would ever need another one. We're out, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.